Greetings, listeners, and welcome to The Spiritual Experience, a show where we share stories of life, love, and redemption for all of humanity on Earth. So sit back and enjoy. Try to identify with the speakers and not compare. Don't forget to subscribe on all podcast platforms. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, what's going on, party people? Welcome back, Spiritual Experience. We're back in the house. Had a little bit of a break. I got super busy, and truth is, I need to be a little bit. I just, sometimes my life gets unmanageable, and I had so many irons in the fire. I got to get everything together, and I had some people reschedule some interviews, and then I didn't have time. I shouldn't say that. I didn't make time to put out an episode at the end of last week, which I should have. And I apologize to you guys who are loyal listeners. And that's really it, man. We're gonna try and move forward, keep it going, keep it pushing, see where everybody's head is at. I have a busy week. I had a busy life, and it requires more organization. And sometimes, I feel like I don't even have time to get organized. I got to go to therapy in like an hour, so I got to do that. My kid is coming home from Job Corps. It's like a little bit of anxiety with that. Honestly, I'm not really anxious. Maybe they're anxious, but who knows? I don't know. We have a very, middle child to dad relationship. Who know? What middle kid really, is really down to be down with their dad. What do I know? I don't know. I'm just getting cool with my dad right now. You know what I'm saying? A little bit at a time. And he was like a freaking tyrant. I'm not really a tyrant. I can be a little bit rough. I can be a little bit rough, and that's okay. It's okay. Yeah, so here's the thing. It's like, what are we going to do? How are we going to see what the next chapter is? They went up there initially to do carpentry, and then they stopped, and they wanted to switch to culinary. I personally would have rather them stay with carpentry, but it's not on me. It's not on me. And it's a little bit frustrating in the sense, I was talking to my boy Mikey today. He's my mechanic, and he's the best, bro. This guy is the best. If you're in Brooklyn, you need to go to MC Auto Repair. It's right under the highway in Sunset on 64th Street, on the backside of that 7-Eleven or whatever. Anyway, so he's like, same thing. With these kids, they have it. Everything is in the palm of their hand, and then they're all very sensitive in all these other ways. And sensitive in ways that are really good in the sense of, our feelings didn't matter. Our opinions didn't matter when we were kids. They just didn't. Whatever people said you had to do, or you had to fight them. And now we're in this space where we're trying to find some middle ground. And it's very frustrating because while you're living through it, you're like, hey, man, if I, you think it's almost like transactional. Like you could say, hey, look, if I spoke to my dad or to my mom, the way that you're speaking or the way that you're being like little passive aggressive, like shit, they would have killed me. And the truth is that there was no opportunity to even be like that. The only opportunity was either compliance or absolute rebellion. So absolute rebellion, we are grateful that, or I'm grateful that that's not happening, because then I'd really have to put my foot down. But like a very slow rebellion, it's like somebody who's going on like a hunger strike or something. It's what these kids are doing. And my boy Mike is having the same problem with his son, and his son is a great kid. He's got two of them. He's got Patrick and his other kid, Sam, and I love Sammy. He's a funny kid, man. Sammy is like, he's made of a lot of the right stuff, but he's just young, and that's it. And Mikey's like, yo, I'm telling this kid to fill out these exams for the city tests or whatever, and I don't even know if he's doing them. I don't, because you can't be overbearing. You can't be say, hey, listen, number one, if your kid gets a city job, it's a good ass job, and it provides stability, and maybe it gives the parents a peace of mind. And there are a lot of people. Listen, I have a lot of friends that work for the city, and they, if they're happy doing their jobs, then I'm happy for them. And they have incredible careers, and they make really good money, and they work really, really freaking hard. And it's a union thing, and I'm all the way down with it, I'm all the way down with it. But, it's not for everybody. So, sometimes as parents, you're thinking like, dude, I just want the milling around. I want that to stop. I want them to be stable and to be self-supporting through our own contributions. Like, that's the thing, right? And it's funny because we talk about that in AA, whatever, NA, don't get me started. But to me, that is the definition of an adult. An adult is somebody who can support themselves by themselves. To some degree. I'm going to say that. That's like a little caveat, to some degree. Like, am I really going to torture? Listen, if my son needs money, he gets money. If my other two kids, the theys and thems, even though they're my daughters, I love them. But yeah, if they need money, but I just, yeah, it's my job. But at the same time, you also want them to, I can't be spoon feeding them their whole life. They have to be able to try and go out there and do something and make something of themselves. Not only just for, just to alleviate, the stress and the pressure from the parents, but also so that it builds confidence. Like I loved making money. I love making money right now. I do. I love making money right now. It's like one of my favorite things to do. And not even for myself, but I make money so that way I can help others with that money and help support my family. That's my job. I'm the kingfish, and my woman is my partner, and she handles a lot of other things. But my job is to go out there and get the fish in the boat. Her job is to make sure that the boat is maintained and that there's fuel in the boat and that, we're making profitable catches or whatever you want to call it. And also to, to be there for the kids, because the kids need help, man. These kids, they all need help. They all need every kid needs a good mom, and she is an incredible mother. So, you want your kids to, but to be, to be self-supporting, but they don't have the same life that we have. We made it a little bit easier for them in some ways. We just did. And, now these are some of the potholes that are on the road that we try to build because they don't have the kind of pressure that we had. Now, mind you, I am not a really good example for this kind of thing, but there are other people from my generation and maybe the generation behind me that are better examples than me. Sorry, I'm taking off my boots so I can put on my sneakers. But yeah, because listen, I made a baby 3 months before my 16th birthday. So I've been chasing the bag for a long time. And in all reality, I'm pretty good. I don't know. Okay, I guess I could say I'm pretty good at making money. I'm still learning what to do with the money after we make it, like investing and this and that. And, I I gambled a bunch of it away in the market with, trading options like a year ago. Not a lot, but what's the truth? The truth is that me and my cousin during the pandemic, we were trying to learn how to trade options, and the market was going up and it was going crazy. And I wasn't really that good at it. I took $2,000 and I turned it into like 20 grand. And then I gave it back down to 2,000 and then went up to like 16,000. And then I gave it back. So there's that. Where in reality, if I would have just stuck the money in there and maybe left it, I would have been in a little bit of a better shape. Bro, I was buying Bitcoin, 3,000-4,000. What is it now? Like 40,000. I bought and sold it a bunch of times. I should have just loaded up and just left it. But I didn't. I didn't. That was a small break for all of you guys to do the math. But, yeah, I didn't do that. And, so now what am I doing? I'm in my 40s. We have a business. We're trying to get involved in some real estate. I still have money in the stock market. I bought some pre-IPO stuff or whatever last year. So I got to hold on to those shares. I'm building my long-term stock portfolio. I'm teaching my girl how to do that. Whatever. We're buying all the necessary stuff. The Spider, Apple, Tesla, all the things, a little bit at a time. And that way, look, when the market is going, when the market is going good now, if there's a good day in the market, my portfolio, because I have all these different things, including some ETFs, and I still have some cryptos. Look, I took big gambles too. I still have Bitcoin, but I don't have it down at 4,000. I have it a little bit around this area. Same thing with Ethereum. Ethereum's really the one I believe in. I bought a bunch of those metaverse coins, because that's going to be like the wave. That I believe, because what I'm gambling on is that, especially some of these younger people, going back to what Mikey's kid and my kid and other people who have children that are our children's age, is that these kids are trying to work less and less. And I would not be shocked if they all found ways to make money in the metaverse from their house. In 10 years from now, I'm 43, I'll be 53. So whatever, I'm not buying real estate in the metaverse, but, I bought a bunch of those coins. I think I have the Sand token, I have Mana, whatever. I bought some Shiba Inu all the way up in the ceiling. Hopefully it'll come back. Yeah, not a lot of money in this stuff, but whatever, a couple of grand. So, but it's like slow and steady. Now I'm thinking okay, listen, when the market is up and it's doing well, in a day, my shit will be up $400, my whole basket. So if I keep going slow and steady, what I'm saying to myself is that in 10 years, And instead of being up 400 for the day, I'll be up $4,000 for the day. And that's going to be nice, you know. But I have to be very consistent and try to teach that to a 22-year-old person. They're like, what? They can't even see past, you know, they're hiding from tomorrow and they're ashamed of yesterday. That's what it is. They're just hiding and they're still trying to get comfortable with themselves. And I don't know how to, the problem is I don't know how to facilitate that. I can't give that to somebody. That's something that they're going to have to find on their own. The only thing I can do is just provide them with a platform where at least it can be done in a healthy way. You know, nobody's drinking and doing drugs crazy in my house. Nobody's really yelling at each other. Nobody's throwing things. And maybe these things are given. You know, what do I know? You know, I don't know. You know, I don't want credit for something that I should be doing already. But the truth is that like all of those things were happening in the house I grew up in, you know, and many of the people that I grew up in during that time, that was happening in their houses too. I was just grateful I had two parents and they both worked. They worked their ass off, bro. They really did. And we didn't really have a lot of bread until, you know, my teenage years or my 20s or my 30s, whatever. Then they started really becoming a little bit more comfortable. But they put the work in. You know, they put the work in, and now my dad's like scared to retire. I think he's scared to retire because he's still like, oh, one day you might need something, or, you know, he's starting to lose his bird a little bit. And this guy's like, you know, yeah, dementia's happening. Or whatever, Alzheimer's. It runs in my family. So, you know, that's happening a little bit at a time. You know, he's becoming a little softer. You know, I still can't really have conversations with him about my kids or anything because I keep telling you guys, he's from a different planet. And, you know, he's good at throwing money at situation. I mean, that's nice. But the bad part is he's, you know, you'll never hear the end of it. So, you know, you're going to earn it. He's not going to give it to you. You're going to earn it with a couple of ear beatings every time he sees you. Yeah, how's the truck? Yeah. Like I have this Ford Explorer, right? Now, mind you, I don't know if what is it new? It's like 2 years old. So, yeah, I have this car. He pays for my car as a grown adult. This guy pays for my freaking car. And it took so much for me to let him do that. You know, it took so much. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. Because what happened, and how this is, situation, I was going to say scenario or situation. Sometimes it's hard for me to just ramp to whatever. Again, this is the second Pfizer shot. Did I take? Yeah, I took Pfizer. They're making me brain stupid. I wish I had some, maybe I could drink a little bit of C4, but it might be a little late for that. So, yeah, I don't have any alpha brain. Either way. So this was my thing. Like my dad is, for somebody who doesn't believe in God or a lot of traditions, you know, because he's a Jew and I'm a Jew, you know, my sister had a lot of Jewish ways about her. We're going to call them mannerisms or something. I don't know. However you want to call it. Right? My cousins, my family, they used to make fun of us when we were kids, when we were growing up, because I was the wild one and she was the straight arrow Gennaro. And she, so they would be like, oh, she's the Jew and you're the Puerto Rican and whatever, and that whole thing. Either way, so my dad, being the Jew dad that he is that's his daughter. He paid, you know, for a car for her whole life. You know, he would lease a car every 3 years. That was his thing. I don't think does he own it? Yes. All right. My dad, he's got an XKR now. My mom bought a Mercedes. I don't know what model it is, but it's dope. It's a little red convertible Mercedes that she owns. They own a Jaguar XKR, which is dope, even though this guy dumped like so much money in there because he loved the car so much. I don't understand why. He could have bought two of them. So they have those two. But the other vehicles that they have, because they have multiples, are leased. So I think my mom, I don't know what she has, whatever else she drives, and he has like a Ford Escape or something that he leases right through his business. Now, mind you, the last vehicle, I don't know, the last vehicle that he got for me was my first vehicle, which was my Acura Legend. 1992 Acura Legend. I bought it in 96 or 97, and I wanted a car. They're like, hey, this is your money from your bar mitzvah. I guess you're going to buy a car with it. And I always tell the story. It's pretty crazy to do that. In hindsight, I wish they would have did something different with the money, but they didn't. Well, they could have just said no or whatever. I don't know, but that's the story. So I was 17 years old with this car that he got for me. And I was making the payments like the first few months because I was so angry. Yeah, and I didn't know that was like gift money. I just thought he was just doing it. So which was even crazier. And I didn't want him to do it because I didn't want to hear his fucking mouth. And I had all the bells and whistles on that car. Tinted windows. At that time I had the gooseneck DVD player. I had the whole thing. I had DVD player when the cars didn't have them. It was crazy. That car was freaking crazy. Right. So, but either way, so that was that. And every car after that, I was an adult and I bought on my own. I leased some cars and then I bought some and blah, blah, blah. And I remember, I used to have El Camino. I just sold it this past summer or 2 summers. Was it this past summer? Yeah, I got rid of it. I love that car so much. Like so much. I had that car since my son graduated high school. I gifted it to myself. And I bought that car and I loved it, man. Oh my God. It's a story how it's gone, but it's gone. It went on the chopping block a few times because one thing I'm good at is here and there is I'm good at like parking the money. So I park the money in the car. That car doesn't really lose value, whatever. But it was an El Camino and I was fucking whipping that thing. When I drove it, I barely drove it. I drove it, a couple of times a month, but I fucking loved it, man. That thing was like, I'll get something else eventually. But, the chips fell how they did, My lady wanted a bedroom set. She got the car money for that. And that's why I didn't have to hear nothing else about it. I'm probably going to get another car in another year or so. And I don't want to hear anything about that either. But, it's okay. It's okay. I've made my peace with it. I'm like 95% over that. But the point of the story is now I have this Explorer, right? So in between the time, whatever, okay, so my sister passes away, She passed away, I think maybe it's got to be 3 years ago. I don't keep track of all of this stuff. I know my mom is going to have like some kind of headstone unveiling. It was before COVID that she died. It was definitely before COVID. So she died. It was fucking tragic. It was horrible. It was just bad, man. It was bad. She had, her sickness started with, what do you call it? Look, she drank. And she drank hard. And nobody could tell her anything. And she was a super high achieving person. And nobody could tell her anything. And she was struggling. Mental problems. I guess depression. She didn't want to surrender, to life. And she was like very driven, super extrovert, very driven. Like she loved. I don't know. It's hard to even think about it because I didn't have the best relationship with her because we grew into different personalities, And but yeah, Yeah, she was just she's like my dad, very difficult to get along with, but they mean well, which is like it's not really how you want to roll. You don't want to mean well. You want to do well and you want to be well. You don't want to be like, oh, well, he means well. Like, fuck out of here. That used to be me. That's why I'm saying that. So either way, right? Long story short, we end up in, she had, she had all those things. And then eventually her body just gave out. She caught this sickness. I don't know. I don't like to mispronounce things, but I'm a chimp. So I think it's called Guillain-Barré or Guillain-Barré. I don't know. So many people say all these different names. It was a neurological thing, bro. It was fucking neurological. And it was bad. And it was so bad. She lost motor functions, everything. Yeah, man, it was freaking bad. So she ends up in the hospital, and, she ends up in the hospital. Now, mind you, I have a whole nother life. This is 3 years ago. I guess we're going to go into this today, right? Who knows where the spider web goes? I don't even, sorry, I just banged my elbow. Not my funny bone. Thank God, because I'm a baby with that stuff. Either way, right? So here's what happens. She gets this, she just starts losing motor functions. It's a neurological thing. I don't know what's going on, right? She's in New York. She's got a very prestigious job, I guess you want to call it that. Like I said, high functioning. She is running around the city, setting up charter schools. Right? She's doing that. And she was always really good with kids. With kids, she was so good. I mean, she was super controlling and super aggressive, I would say, because she would see kids, and she never had like biological kids of her own, right? But she could see the potential in other children, right? And then she would see her own deficiencies, and she would in them, right? So she would see the potential in the kids, and she would see all of her shortcomings in the kids, right? And what she would do, and this is like high school kids or whatever, junior high school kids, right? Because she graduated from Duke, and then she went to NYU for like sports management or something. And then she had all these different hats she was wearing, and she really did a lot for kids, prepping them for college or whatever. She'd be in the Heights or in the Bronx and stuff like that. She was in all these programs. She was vice president of the, the National Corporation of Puerto Rican Women. She was like in it. My sister she was like an activist in some ways, in a lot of ways, right? But when she would see the shortcomings in the other kids, she'd be like, she recognized that in herself. So she knew how to help them navigate that. And she would sometimes do it a little bit forcefully because kids, they needed that. She'd be like, no, we're going to show up and we're going to bump. And then, the kids that would comply, they would fucking win. They would get it, and that's what's good. And it was very gratifying for her. Mind you, alcoholism runs in my family, and she was very good at, she was very good at her job, and she's very good with people, and she was just very bad with herself. She had low self-esteem, and she had depression. She had a couple of bad breakups or whatever in her life, and heartache, and all these other things that I'm not trying to minimize, but it's regular life stuff. But some of it hurts more than others. She was, and how do I even say this? She was like, well, she's not here, so she's not going to, and this is not an embarrassing thing. She was like she was sexually assaulted when she was in college. And that fucked her up, It fucked her up pretty good. And, I was talking about this with Brandy. And some stuff you just don't get over, man. And by the time I was close to my 30s, it's so bizarre how that is like a normal thing. Like I never met, I haven't met women in my adult life, meaning by the time I was 30 to now, there's very few women that I met that didn't happen to in one way or another. Either they were super duper pressured, or it was literally they were assaulted, or, you know, all these other things. They were taking it. It's fucking horrible, man. It's horrible that it's a statistic that, as high as it is, you know, as high as it is. And, yeah. So anyway, that happened to her. It was to me, I guess the funny part of that happening, she called my house like after it happened, you know, and I remember answering the phone. And this is good. Well, the good part is I can tell these stories, and my mom, she kind of asked me like, oh, how does your radio show, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, she don't know how to work podcasts or whatever, so she ain't going to hear it. But here's what happened, right? I was like maybe in high school or a little bit afterwards or whatever. And she calls me, and she calls the house. I pick up, and she was like, yo, you know, I was out. I guess somebody slipped something in her drink or whatever happened. That's typically how that stuff happens in college or whatever. She woke up with somebody she didn't know, I guess in a place that she didn't know or whatever. And then I didn't even know how to respond. Mind you, I was a teenager, and, you know, I was addicted. I was whatever. I was a teenager, you know, and I had already long lost my way. But I remember I asked her, I was like, are you okay? I was like, what happened? I said, where's the guy? She said, like, he's like on the floor. It's like on the floor. She's like, yeah. She's like, I woke up and I smacked him a bunch of times with the phone, like, and not a cell phone, like a phone, you know, like an actual telephone that's attached to a cord that goes like a big phone, like, you know, with an earpiece. She kicked the shit out of him with the phone, and he's bleeding on the floor. And I remember I was like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. I think I told her she's got to get out of there or something. I don't know what happened. But eventually my mom went down there and picked her up from school, and they never spoke about it ever again. And I know that part of her was resentful towards my mom because my mom allegedly spoke to her about boys and about this and that. I don't know. She don't blame my mom for that thing happening, but, you know, she blames my mom for not teaching her about boys. Mind you, my mom, you know, everybody's trying to do the best they can. And that's it, you know, and you want to give them all the information, but you don't even know all the information, and they always end up blaming you. Meanwhile, my parents, I'm sure they tried to teach me a lot of good things, and as a young person, you are not willing or ready to hear any of that stuff. Okay. Sorry to get sidetracked. But anyway, so that kind of stuff happened. So it's important because it sets the stage, right? This is her life. And so she never healed from any of that stuff. And she had very low self-esteem, and she was a superstar athlete. And then she ended up breaking her leg, and then she got fat, and then she never lose the weight, and then it was that. So she found all of her esteem in giving, and she found her self-worth in giving, and she gave a lot to, like, these kids, these New York City kids in public schools or whatever. And then she ended up, you know, running programs and starting, doing all these things, man. It was incredible. Yeah. She was really, she was very, very intentionally impactful to young people's lives. Mind you, she was falling apart, but didn't nobody know, because she was hiding in success. I mean, and my whole family drinks like crazy. So even like I just came from Florida, right? So she would go to Florida to all my family reunions. I didn't really go all the time. I would go once every few years, because here's the thing. The thing is, you know, I didn't want to spend money at that time. Sometimes I just didn't even have it. But I didn't want to spend money to sit there on the beach and watch everybody get drunk, because the only people who wasn't drinking, my cousin Betsy and my cousin Tito, and I love them, and they're everything, They really are. I love them so much, right? And my cousin Lisette, and she really drinks. She doesn't really drink. I shouldn't say that. But, she likes to drink. But she's not a nasty drunk or anything like that. Some of my other cousins that be going down there, some of them are. So it's just not a place for me. It's not enjoyable. And it's so bizarre that everybody would gather from my cousins, sometimes from Arizona, my cousins from Florida, my cousins from the Bronx. They would all go down to Tampa and they'd get fucked up for 3 or 4 days. They'd go there and then all there would just be is they would just drink and there would be drama and then everybody would come home. I'm like, dude, that is a poor investment of my time. Who's saying what to whom? And at this time, and I used to be part of that whole life. But again, your boy got sober when he was 24. Yeah, so I've been sober a long time. So it's just like people, places, and things, and I love them all on an individual, sometimes one house at a time. So, but they would all hit me up when all that stuff was over and be like, dude, your sister was way out of pocket over here, She was, whatever. She was out of pocket. And I knew it. And then she would be out of pocket all the time. And I'm like, dude, you guys see her once a year, once or twice a year. I see her on holidays. I see her this and that. And she was never really a happy, she was never really a happy drunk. She would start out happy and then it would end sad, with her crying in the corner. Mind you, she's above average intelligence, had a very giving heart. And, she was, she was a good person. She was struggling, man. She was struggling, but she was a good person. Again, she meant well, So she gets this Guillain Barre or bar, whatever it's called, loses all her motor functions, all this shit, right? Ends up in a hospital. Now, it was so wild that, I start visiting her. Mind you, my mom's a retired public school teacher. She's got time. My mom is driving from Spring Valley to Manhattan every day to be with her for hours, every day. And this went on for however long it went on. Now, I knew something was cooking because I just knew how she was. And, maybe I'm not the best at this kind of stuff, and I'm trying to be better. But, when nobody was around, I would go see her. And, I don't know, one time or something. One time I sent, or a couple of times I would send, I'd pay for like this service where they would go there and they would do her nails and do her hair. And even though she couldn't really move or anything that much, I wanted her to feel a little good about herself. But then I went and I checked her and I was like, look, I had to sit down and I said, listen, this is a good opportunity for you. You're in trouble, and I'm letting you know that the clock is ticking. I'm only saying this as somebody who is in recovery from alcohol and drug abuse and who's been in recovery rooms for a very long time, that I've seen this. And I can go off of names, 20 names of this. I start rattling of people who are no longer with us because I watched them. Not everybody who comes to AA gets sober or NA gets clean or whatever. So I said, listen, man, there's an opportunity for you, boy. God is tapping you on the shoulder right now. He's saying, yo, you need to really check yourself. You need to check yourself. It's important. This is bad. I took your speech. I took your motor functions, all this shit. You need to check yourself. And there's therapists that were there and doctors and all this other. I said, you can, like that television show, what is it, the whatever, $8 million man, $6 million man, you can rebuild yourself, stronger, faster, all this stuff. And she was young, bro. She was younger than I am now. I'm 43. I don't even think she was 40. I think maybe, no, I'm lying. I'm sorry. I don't even think she was 42. Whatever. Yeah. So, entonces, yeah. So I said, look, Ben, this is like an opportunity for you to like really take a look at yourself. You know, there's therapists there. My cousin Selena worked in that hospital, and Selena was like on it with everything, with the doctors, with all the stuff. But I knew something was bad because when the doctors would come and have chats with my sister, not the psychiatric or psychological people, which I don't even know what the hell kind of conversations she's had with them or whatever. Either way, so she yeah, when the medical staff would come in, straight up she would tell my mom to leave the room. And that was like a huge red flag. I told my mom, I was like, bro, something is very not right if that's what's happening. I know like maybe 5 years before, whatever, 10 years, but I'm going to say 10 years because I'm bad with that kind of stuff. My life is so good, one day and 1 year rolls into the next. And yeah. So, but I remember one doctor told her that she had like a fatty liver, and that was like at least, let's say we'll split the difference, 7 years before all this started happening. Right? So she had a fatty liver then, and she was like, my sister could drink, man. Very impressive. She really could, because she's an alcoholic. And that's the truth. Alcoholics can drink more than normal people. So she was sending my mom out the room, and then, she's so resilient, and she was so determined, that she wanted to, she was so determined. She wanted to win. And what happened? A little bit at a time, she got her motor skills, and she started to fight. And she started that D-Ray, what do you call it? Stubbornness came, right? Hold on, man. I'm going to sneeze. This one's going to be, oh, no, it's coming. Maybe this is her telling me to shut the fuck up, but I doubt it. So anyway, that resilience starts coming, right? Boom. So she's like, yeah. And then she learns how to walk. This takes like a whole year, I think, a year and a half. She learns how to talk. She learns how to walk. All this stuff. She starts getting all her motor skills back, all her stuff. Again, my mom's still going there every day. And when she starts talking, she starts to get back some of her old personality. Where I'm like, bro, you need to be a little bit more grateful. And she's being a little bit snotty to my parents, because they really want to know what's going on. I'm like, dude, my mom is coming here every day. My dad wasn't going all the time because he doesn't know how to deal with this kind of stuff, which was bizarre. Yeah. So in this way, I got to say, like, he had an inability to do it. I don't want to say he was a coward, but that's what he was behaving like one. He's got to live with that, not me. I would go once a week or whatever, make sure she was all right. She was making progress. They'd send me videos, everything, everything. They would send all this stuff. So, yeah, here's what happens. She gets back on her feet, and as soon as, bro, you don't know how crazy this disease is, the disease of alcoholism, addiction, depression, all of that stuff. This is how crazy it is. As soon as she was able to be moved, like she was in a wheelchair or in a walker or something, I forgot. I think she was in a wheelchair. Bro, some people not knowing, and if this is you, I'm not blaming you all the way, but some of the way I'm fucking blaming you. As soon as she was able, bro, some of her people that she knew from this job or whatever, some of her friends, bro, they came, and when she was allowed to go outside the hospital, first thing she did was go to the restaurant on the corner to have drinks and smoke cigarettes outside. I'm like, yo, are you freaking crazy? That's how I knew she wasn't done. I was like, if this is not stopping you, there's a story in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous about the jaywalker. And you can just maybe Google it at your leisure. And that's what this was. I'm like, dude, like you literally a year ago couldn't walk, none of that stuff. And now you going straight back into the hole. And that's what happened. She got her stuff back together a little bit at a time. Mind you, while this was going on, my mom was finally sneaking over and getting into her apartment, right? And there was vodka bottles everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, everywhere, like in drawers, behind pillows, in closets. She became like a hoarder. It's somebody that you would never imagine was like that, you know? So you need to check on your people is what I'm saying. Because there was a time, it would be like maybe a couple of years that she knew how to navigate. You know, she knew that when my mom was coming by, she wouldn't be like, oh, I'll meet you over here. Let's go to the diner. Let's go do the laundry. Let's go do this. And they'd spend time together all the time, but my mom wouldn't go up into her apartment. And years go by, and then the shit they found was so crazy, my mom was like crying. My dad went out, they were like, Jared, they were like, please, don't tell anybody, don't show anybody, but this is what's going on. I'm like, bro, this is a mental affliction, and this is an emotional affliction, and she's in deep trouble. If this is how she's living, even though she's showing up to work every day and she's freaking winning, she's winning, but they were like devastated. They didn't even want anybody. I was like, yo, I'll pay for somebody to go in there and clean all that stuff up. My mom was like, nah, we're going to do it 1 inch at a time, one room at a time. You know? Yeah, but she didn't want to stop, man. And she didn't stop. She didn't. It was bad. And then at the end, what happens, right? Then she gets out of the hospital and she has a walker and she's allowed to go back to work, right? Because now she's mobile, her faculties are there. And I'm like, I told her, I said, listen, this is not your, whatever. I said, this is not your fault, but it's your responsibility, but I'm letting you know something. The agency or whatever that you work for, they're going to view you as a liability because like you can only work part-time, like I'm not part-time, like 3 days a week because of your physical ailments, right? Because you can't, you know, she wasn't 100% yet. She was like maybe 40%, but bro, my dad was paying for Ubers to get her back and forth, you know, to wherever we sparing no expense minus the truth. That was what was spared. So, yeah. So what happens? She, I told him, I said, listen, I said, look, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to work for a while. They're going to be scared that you're going to fall somewhere while being on clocked in or on payroll, whatever, and you're going to sue them. And the truth is that even though you may not do that, as a corporation, their responsibility is to protect themselves. So just be prepared that they're probably going to lay you off within 2 months or 2 months of just them seeing like where the risks are. That's why they're allowing you to come back, but it's okay. Because me and my dad, we already, and by this time, I was doing okay with the business that we have now, and we're making money. I told my dad, I said, look, I'll pay her rent for a year. He's like, all right, I'll cover the rest of the bills. And then boom. So she can go away somewhere and really get full physical rehab and all this other stuff. Because she was going to PT here and there or whatever. And then, guess what happened? That happened, right? She gets laid off. And then she's like, and that was like the final straw. She gets devastated. She gets laid off. And I was like, dude, I told you. And they told her, they were like, listen, they told her, like, look, man, you know, get yourself together and then you can come back or whatever. They didn't say it was performance-based. It was just because of what was going on, But emotionally, she's like, if she didn't have that to live for, it was just like she couldn't understand the she couldn't see the long game. I'm like, dude, you spend 1 year, me and my dad will help, we'll pay all these bills or whatever. You spend 1 year just getting it, and you'll go right back to normal, you know. But she didn't make it, because then she just stayed in her house, and instead of going to physical therapy, whatever, she stopped going a little bit at a time. And she was with herself, by herself, wouldn't let nobody come upstairs. And she kept drinking, and she was ordering liquor to the house like they delivered. My cousin Tim, we were all scared, because we knew it was bad. And I told my parents, I said, listen, we're going to have to really intervene right now. Like, we're going to have to. And they didn't really understand, but I was telling them the same way I'm telling you. I'm like, listen, the end is near. We're going to have to do this. So we called an intervention guy. We had to pay whatever we had to pay, and he came. And wildly enough, within a few hours, he convinced her to go to the rehab, And we were so grateful. We were so grateful, man. But she gets in the van. The van drives to the wrong place initially and then gets her to the right place. And then she goes to the intake, right? And at the intake, she has to sign these forms that will allow the doctors from the hospitals at NYU and these other doctors to communicate with each other to find out exactly what's really going on with her, even though she's fully alcohol and I guess whatever kind of medication she was dependent. In between that time and that time, she showed up at my cousin Amanda's wedding, full jaundiced out, like all the way yellow. And yeah, and she'd a little bit at a time she gave up. She gave up. So what happens at the intake? She don't want to sign those papers, and then all of a sudden right there, she had, on the day that she was allegedly surrendering and trying to get the last bit of help, she had multiple organ failure on that day. Kidneys, liver, everything. And then she went into the hospital. And that was it. She never came out. She never came out. And it was sad. And she was in this beautiful place in New Jersey. And I would go all the time, every day, every couple of days. My cousin Eric, he flew up from Florida. I would go. And she's like completely being kept alive with machines, even though and let me tell you, it's when somebody's in that state, they can hear you. They may not be able to move or whatever, but they can hear you. Because she was very, like, you would think she wasn't moving or whatever, but she was responsive, like with these little ticks. I remember telling one of these Filipino nurses, this guy, I was like, bro, man, she's, this is alcohol related. And he knew because he saw her paperwork. It was all, her liver was over. Everything, it was over, right? And he's like, there's a bunch of alcoholics on this floor. I see it all the time. I was telling her, I was like, dude, she's an alcoholic. And let me tell you, her eyes rolled at me as only they could, And she was in denial all the way to the end. And it was sad. And I would go there and I would bring my phone and I would play Tribe Called Quest for her next to her ear. I'd play music, and that was nice. And I would talk to her. I don't remember any of those conversations. I just remember that, she ended up getting this other infection in there. And this place, they exhausted all efforts and they tried everything. And, and that was it. My parents had to make a decision. It was over. They had to pull the plug. There was nothing else that could be done. Literally nothing else. And it was sad. And I remember driving home from there one night, and this song came on one of my Pandora playlists. I avoid it now at all costs because it almost makes me cry because it came on. It's a very sad song. I don't know if I remember it. What's it called? Either way, I don't want to make it more sappy than it already is. 1 second, I'll tell you right now. Come on, Google. Oh, yeah, it was called Heartbeats. It's bad. But it was by this guy. Yeah, Heartbeats song. Oh, yeah, Jose Gonzalez, I think that's what it was. Yeah, it's so sad. Anyway, I just wanted her to be free, man. I wanted her to be free. And I had and it was on that ride home that I was like almost crying, and I haven't cried in forever, that I surrendered, that I wasn't going to see her the same way ever again. And it was bad. And yeah. And then she, and that was it. So we had to set a date, and I went with my girl and my mom, and my dad was there, and the nurses were there, and, they just, we were praying. My mom was praying, bawling, crying. My girl was crying, she was crying. And to see my girl cry like that was just so, I'm thinking about it now, and it was sad. And I love her so much, man. She's everything. And I watched my dad cry, and say all these loving things while he's crying about his daughter, that he didn't really say when she was around. And he was saying them, and he was praying in Hebrew for a guy who don't believe. And I was like shocked. Like, when this guy learned that prayer, Yeah. So my sister was born July 13, 1977. That's a very famous day in New York City. Huge blackout. They call it when you have people who are of age and like, oh, where were you on the blackout? That was the day they're talking about. And then I don't remember the year. I'm sorry, but it's okay. Yeah. So she passed away on the day of the Puerto Rican Day Parade that year, whatever that is, June, second Sunday in June, in the morning. It was so sad. The nurses came in. They were like, she stopped breathing a minute ago, And that's what, and the nurses cried and they hugged us. And, yeah. So now, my mom, she's going to have this, and then COVID happens and whatever. We have a burial, and every person, number one, we had a wake at this whatever Jewish funeral home in Spring Valley. Everybody we grew up with came, and there were people who were there in spirit, and nobody was keeping score who was there, who wasn't there. And I gave like a little bit of a eulogy. I wish I could have done it better, but whatever. I don't know. I did everything I could. And all of her friends from junior high school, everybody, admiration, We all knew this little thing about her, but, that she was, yeah. So, yeah, and then we had the burial in Queens. And I rolled up there, and I was like, I was trying to be supportive for everybody else. I roll up there. As soon as I get to the burial site, out of nowhere, who do I see? My fucking sponsor. He's there on his own. Roberto, who you guys met a couple of weeks ago, and my brother Tone Tank. The three of them, That was everything for me. That was everything for me. And everything for my son, and it was great. So, saying that to say this, right? The whole time, while she was sick, my dad was paying for this car that wasn't getting used. So I started driving her car around, and it was like a blue Ford Escape, right? It was a blue Ford Escape, and whatever. What was I driving at that time? I was driving something else. Either way, the car came in handy. I'm not going to lie. They were like, tiptoeing away like, yeah, you just drive her car until the lease is up. Because, she passed away in the middle of the lease. I drove it when it was up until it was up. And then I was like, all right, here's a car. And then my dad, he looks at me and he was just like, listen, how about I lease you a car? And I was like, no fucking way. Right? Because I was thinking about myself. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna let this guy lease me a car. Number one, I have my own cars. I have my own vans for work. I have a whole thing. I have that El Camino, right? I got everything. I was driving something else. I don't even forget what I was driving. Either way. So I was like, no, because saying to myself, I was like, nah, man, dude, this guy, then every time I see him, he's going to be like, good thing I got you that truck, huh? How's the truck? He's like, he could never just give you something. And then I went through it with my sponsor. My sponsor was just like, bro, you gotta let him be a dad. That's what you gotta do. You want to be a son and you're somebody else's father, you got to let him be a father. He wants to do that for you, you got to let him. Because I was like, dude, I can stand on my own 2 feet, blah, blah, all this other stuff, and who knows how long we're going to be around and all of that. So he's like, you got to let him do it. And so what? When you see him a few times a year, he's going to throw it in your face for fucking 10 minutes. You get a car, and he gets to feel good about something. And it's really about him. You got to let him do it. Free Willy. Yariv is really good. Free Willy's the best sponsor. He was everything at that moment. Yariv is everything now. I miss Free Willy. I love Yariv. Yeah. Those are my sponsors. And Andy, first sponsor I had in AA. But, yeah. So, if you're a young person, I'm letting you know right now, sometimes you got to let your parents be parents. Which means that if I got to let my dad pay for a car for me, that means, sometimes you got to take things from your folks that you may not want to take because they don't know how to deliver love in the way that you need it or the way that you want it, but they're just trying to love you, and nobody's trying to hurt you. Nobody's trying to make you feel bad. We're all just learning as we go along. And if I could say that in reality, I take these deep breaths, but I'm happy my sister's gone. I miss her. I do. And if you're my family member, I know you miss her too. But I don't want her here suffering the way she was. She couldn't get comfortable. She couldn't. And the Lord was just like, listen, you've done enough. Now you come hang out with me. And it's up to him. So I'm happy that she's free. And my mom cries. She cried today on the telephone because she wants me to set up all this, help her set up this function in the summertime for the stone unveiling, for my family. If you guys are listening, they're going to unveil the stone, and then we're going to go back to my mom's house, and we're going to have a big barbecue. and all the kids are going to be invited, everybody, and all that stuff. And it's going to be nice, you know. But, yeah, that's how, you know, what lessons can I take from that and give them to my own kid? I don't know. Except for they all watched me go through something and handle it with as much grace and dignity and understanding as I possibly could, and me letting them know I didn't do everything right, you know. So that's how this is how I have my. So if you see me in the Black Explorer, this is where it came from. You know, I'm letting my dad be a dad. All right, I love you guys. Peace. Okay, everybody, we'd like to thank you for joining us on The Spiritual Experience. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, Pandora, everywhere. And please find us on Facebook, where you can become part of our family. We'll see you around.